It's hot and muggy, and so I'm starting a little early tonight. So I got William Cooper's "Behold a Pale Horse." I've never read the text. I've had a lot of excerpts and things I've looked at, but I've never read the whole thing. Frankly, I don't have time to read anymore. I'm a book scholar that doesn't read anymore. It's pretty sad, but we're having uh, Google Notebook LM analyze the text for some key things. Now, I've kind of gone through the audio a little bit before I wanted to play here. They kind of meander quite a bit, which is fine. I asked for a longer rendition. Um, but specifically, I was looking for events from 2025 and beyond predicted in the book. Uh, you know, but they give the background and the prehistory to that. So I skipped to the end, and there's like a 20-second. If you want to skip to the end, if you're watching this later, it'll kind of address what the questions were, which was 2025 and beyond predictions and uh, any details in the book about AI and autonomous machines. So yeah, I was basically trying to focus on that, but it went all over the place. So it is what it is. Uh, and he wasn't wanting to, I think, kind of thing. So anyway, yeah, let's just hit the play button. I gotta get that shower. I'm just hot and muggy right now. It is one of them the muggy summers, and yeah, I'm getting it pretty hard. So okay, so I'll hit the play button, and yeah, this is a very niche audience that would want to see or hear this, but whatever. It's sticking to that commitment of 9 p.m. every night, putting something up. So it's a little bit earlier than that. That's fine. All right, enough preliminary uh, exposition. We'll get on it. Okay, I gotta hit the play button here.
What if the very fabric of the reality we inhabit is not what it seems? What if a future so meticulously planned decades ago it feels like science fiction is already unfurling around us, subtly yet profoundly shaping everything from global conflicts to our daily economic lives? Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into some truly extraordinary claims drawn from a single fascinating and deeply controversial document. Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. Our mission today is to peel back the layers of this particular source to unpack its predictions for 2025 and beyond. We'll be specifically extracting any data it provides regarding AI or autonomous machines, and then, crucially, analyzing the likelihood or implausibility of these claims entirely from the perspective presented within the source material itself. Prepare to have your understanding of what constitutes reality challenged as we explore a world of alleged hidden power structures and startling revelations through the lens of this provocative work.
It's certainly a unique lens, yeah. And the source wastes no time establishing William Cooper's perceived authority and credibility. It frames him as, well, a self proclaimed prophet, someone who, as it states quite explicitly, paid a high price for telling the truth.
Mm.
The text doesn't shy away from dramatic imagery, telling us directly that the scars on his face and the loss of his leg are his badges of sincerity on your behalf. This isn't just, a biographical detail. It's presented as actual evidence of his unique insight.
Right, like proof he suffered for this knowledge.
Exactly. The document further emphasizes that no one becomes popular by telling people the truth, and starkly reminds us history records what happened to the true prophets of the past. However, some have listened to their warnings and were not caught off guard. This powerful introduction immediately sets the stage, suggesting that Cooper's message comes with a profound personal cost, which, within the source's narrative, is meant to validate his otherwise extraordinary and, frankly, often unsettling claims.
That's a very intentional framing, isn't it? It suggests his claims aren't just theories, but like hard won truths. So, for the listener trying to understand his worldview, what was it about Cooper's background and formative experiences that led him to these profound beliefs? His own creed itself is quite revealing, isn't it? Beginning with a deep belief in God and Jesus, then an equally fervent belief in the U.S. Constitution without interpretation, and finally, his family, swearing to give his life in their defense. It feels deeply personal.
It absolutely is. And his military career is central to how he positions himself as someone who gained access to these truths that the public supposedly remains oblivious to. He recounts being on duty on November 22nd, 1963, when he witnessed the assassination of President John F. Kennedy live on TV.
Wow.
He describes feeling an almost visceral compulsion to call the command center, a moment that, he says, quickly escalated into a DEFCON 2 alert.
DEFCON 2, that's serious.
Extremely serious. For those unfamiliar, it's a heightened state of military readiness, just one step below imminent war. The fact that a civilian event, the assassination, triggered such a severe military response deeply impacted him, apparently. It became a cornerstone of his understanding of hidden power structures.
Okay, so that was a major event for him.
Huge. And beyond this seismic event, he details a series of unsettling submarine incidents during his naval service. One particularly striking account involves a mysterious, unidentified object that supposedly gouged his submarine's hull.
Gouged the hull.
Yeah, an event whose nature, he claims, was never officially explained to the crew. He also mentions seeing a torpedo sticking through another submarine's conning tower after a training exercise, highlighting the real dangers and unusual occurrences he claims to have witnessed. It suggests a world operating with more anomalies than publicly acknowledged. Most critically, though, he recounts being ordered to sign a non-disclosure agreement, forbidden to speak of what it was that I didn't see, under threat of a $10,000 fine and 10 years imprisonment.
Forbidden to speak of what he didn't see. That's odd wording.
It is, and he claims this was a direct attempt to silence him, cement his belief that he was privy to information deemed too dangerous for the public. Later, he describes the Defense Investigative Service confiscating his floppy disks,
Floppy disks, right.
which he interpreted as a clear sign of being checked out through the intelligence network, further confirming his suspicions about being targeted for his knowledge. He even speculates that his youthful membership in the Demolay Society, a Masonic youth organization, might have been why he was selected for naval security and intelligence in the first place.
So he sees a pattern, a design.
Exactly, suggesting a deeper hidden design to his life's path. These personal experiences, he argues, were not random, but part of a larger pattern designed to bring him face to face with these suppressed realities.
It's quite a compelling personal narrative, almost like a protagonist in a thriller who stumbles upon a conspiracy. And despite all these incredible, almost cinematic experiences, Cooper's personal background, as presented, really grounds his narrative, doesn't it? We learn about his cowboy great grandfather and his brave great grandmother Vance, who famously fed Native Americans during an uprising, a lineage of frontier independence.
All right.
There's his complex relationship with his John Wayne like father and his Southern lady mother. You also learn about his siblings, Ronnie and Connie, and the particularly tragic story of Connie's first husband, Gus, and their daughter, Chrissy. It's a very human story.
Full of family connections and personal struggles.
Yeah, interwoven with these sweeping, almost unbelievable conspiratorial claims.
That's a crucial observation. Despite the grandiosity of his claims, Cooper portrays himself as a very average, normal kind of guy, someone who wasn't seeking to be a hero or perfect, but simply a man with a message. This framing within the source aims to make his shocking revelations seem more grounded and relatable to the reader, or in our case, to you, the listener. It suggests that his story is one of accidental discovery, a burden placed upon him, compelling you to consider his message seriously.
So if this average guy found this, maybe you should listen too.
That's the implication, yeah. Especially given the catastrophic stakes he outlines for the future, he's not presented as a guru, but a messenger, and that makes his alleged discoveries all the more urgent and, in his view, authentic.
Okay, let's unpack this core premise then, because it truly is the foundational assertion of everything Cooper presents. He begins with a fundamental deception. Reality is not at all what we perceive it to be. We have been taught lies.
Stark.
And the warning becomes even more stark. The old way is in the certain process of destruction, and a new world order is beating down the door. This isn't just about political change or economic shifts, but a complete redefinition of existence itself.
Precisely. And this New World Order is explicitly defined in the source not as a conventional political system like communism or democracy.
Right, not the usual categories.
No, it's defined as a totalitarian, socialist, or fascist system. The source insists that you must begin to think correctly about the true nature of this impending global governance, emphasizing it's deliberately outside the usual political boxes we're used to. This new order, as described, is neither left nor right in the conventional sense, but a powerful, centralized control structure designed to eliminate individual freedom and national sovereignty in favor of global, unelected authority. Cooper wants you to understand that this is something different.
Okay, so if reality is a deception and this New World Order is on the horizon, then who or what is orchestrating this grand deception? Cooper lays out an incredibly intricate, almost ancient web of secret societies. Can you give us a sense of the sheer scale and alleged reach of these organizations, according to him?
It's an expansive and quite chilling network, as he describes it. The oldest is identified as the Brotherhood of the Snake, also known as the Brotherhood of the Dragon.
Brother of the Snake.
Yeah, which the source claims is devoted to Lucifer. Cooper stresses that even if you don't personally believe in these entities, the belief of millions of people who do can profoundly affect reality. This belief, he suggests, grants these ancient societies immense, almost supernatural power.
Belief itself is power.
Right. Then there's Freemasonry. Many people are familiar with it, but Cooper describes it very differently. He argues that particularly the highest echelons, the 33rd degree, constitute a wicked and terrible organization. He claims that Freemasonry absorbed the Knights Templar, the powerful medieval order, and later the Illuminati, that secretive Enlightenment era society, making it a direct lineal descendant of these alleged power brokers.
So it's like a nesting doll of secret societies.
Kind of, yeah. And remember, Cooper himself claims his youthful membership in the Demolay Society, the Freemason branch, may have been precisely why he was selected for naval security and intelligence.
Tying his own story back in.
Exactly. Suggesting a calculated long-term plan for recruitment and infiltration. Then you have the Knights of Malta.
Okay.
Presented as another powerful world organization with threads weaving through business, banking, politics, the CIA, other intelligence organizations, and so on. The source highlights that their members purportedly have diplomatic immunity, allowing them to traverse borders with ease and often without scrutiny, and they swear allegiance ultimately to the Pope. All of this, Cooper claims, is ultimately working towards this singular objective of a new world order. The source even points out that Knights of Malta can supposedly ship goods across borders without paying duty or undergoing customs checks,
which would be a significant advantage if true.
A stark example of their asserted power and ability to operate above national laws, exactly. Moving to more familiar names in modern geopolitics, the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR, and the Trilateral Commission.
Right. We hear those names more often.
They're presented as direct, more public-facing offspring of the Illuminati. The source makes very specific and bold claims about their control over key levers of power in the US government, military, and media, stating, every director of the Central Intelligence Agency has been a member of the CFR. Most presidents since Roosevelt have been members.
Every CIA director, most presidents. That's a huge claim.
It paints a picture of a deeply embedded, non-elected power structure that operates behind the scenes, effectively controlling the public narrative and policy, regardless of who is officially in office.
That's staggering that leaders and agencies we perceive as independent are actually beholden to these hidden organizations. But within these groups, Cooper asserts there's an even more powerful, truly hidden core, isn't there?
Absolutely. The true inner power within these overarching groups is identified as the Order of the Quest, also known chillingly as the Jason Society.
Jason Society.
Its members, Cooper claims, are initiated from the most elite and secretive college societies like Harvard's Skull and Bones and Yale's Scroll and Key.
Skull and Bones, okay.
And here's a truly chilling detail presented in the source. The claim that members of the order take an oath absolving them of any allegiance to any nation or constitution, swearing allegiance only to the order and its ultimate goal of a new world order.
Only to the order, wow.
George Bush Sr. is cited as a prime example, with Cooper arguing that his presidential oath of office meant nothing in the face of this higher secret loyalty. This illustrates the asserted depth of infiltration and commitment to their hidden agenda.
So the public oath is meaningless compared to the secret one.
That's the assertion. Finally, we come to the Bilderberg Group, a collection of the most powerful financiers, industrialists, statesmen, and intellectuals. The source claims they hold highly private annual conferences in Switzerland, and their proposals become reality usually within 1 or 2 years following the meeting, implying a direct causal link between their secret discussions and global events.
So their meetings actually shape policy.
That's the claim. And the very core of this group, the source claims, consists of 39 total members of the Illuminati. And the most astonishing detail of all, designed to underscore their unparalleled secrecy and power,
Yes.
is the assertion that these 39 individuals meet on a nuclear submarine beneath the polar ice cap.
On a nuclear submarine. Under the ice.
Yeah.
That certainly takes secret meeting to a whole new level.
It paints a picture of a truly untouchable and unseen global elite operating with absolute impunity to shape the world, according to the source.
Okay. Perhaps one of the most shocking and controversial claims in the source is this assertion of Illuminati infiltration within the Catholic Church, specifically the Vatican. How does Cooper build this argument, considering the historical opposition between the church and secret societies?
It's a bold claim, yeah, and Cooper attempts to build it by highlighting what he sees as a historical shift. He points to well-known historical papal bulls like Pope Clement XII in 1738 and Pope Leo XIII in 1884, which explicitly excommunicated Catholics who became Masons.
Right, showing the traditional conflict.
Exactly, underscoring that traditional conflict. However, the critical pivot, according to Cooper, occurred on November 27th, 1983. He controversially asserts that on this date, Pope John Paul II, whom Cooper incredibly claims to be an Illuminati member and even alleges was a former Polish salesman who sold cyanide gas to Nazis.
Okay, that's a very serious and specific accusation.
Extremely serious. And Cooper claims John Paul II retracted all of the papal bulls against Freemasonry. This act, Cooper claims, allowed Catholics to rejoin secret societies without excommunication, signaling unequivocally that, from his perspective, the New World Order is just on the horizon. Now is the time.
So he sees this retraction as the green light.
As the ultimate legitimization of the Illuminati's agenda within a major global institution, yes. Now, for the significant implications for 2025 and beyond, this alleged infiltration culminates in the establishment of the Pope John Paul II's Centrals via satellite. And here's the truly startling prediction, with a direct link to AI and autonomous systems. All nations have agreed to relinquish sovereignty to the Pope and submit future problems to the computer for solution, though this won't supposedly go into effect until the New World Order is publicly announced.
Wow. So AI governance, essentially. Nations giving up sovereignty to a computer housed at the Vatican.
That's the picture painted. It implies a future where a central technologically advanced system, ostensibly created for peace, effectively governs the world by autonomously generating solutions to global problems, stripping nations of their self-determination. It's a vision of a technologically enabled, centralized global authority, managed not by human debate, but by algorithms and automated processes.
That's a huge, almost unfathomable leap. Moving from these theoretical blueprints and grand sweeping claims, at the core of Cooper's work is the document he presents as the ultimate blueprint: Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. He states this is a formal declaration of war by the Illuminati upon the citizens of the United States of America.
Heavy stuff.
What exactly does this document describe, and what does it reveal about the asserted goals of this hidden power structure?
This introductory programming manual, as the source calls it, is presented as the literal instruction set for manipulating society. It explicitly describes social engineering and the automation of a society, which it chillingly states will lead to slavery and genocide.
Slavery and genocide.
Yeah.
Strong words.
Very. The manual's premise is truly ruthless. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. It adds that those who qualify for this project are chosen for their ability to look at human society with cold objectivity. This document, Cooper asserts, lays bare the cold, calculating intent to manage and control humanity as if it were a complex, programmable machine.
And it outlines highly sophisticated methods for economic control, portraying entire nations and their populations as predictable, manipulable systems. How does it describe this economic engineering, and what are the specific techniques outlined?
It's remarkably detailed and quite cynical. The document attributes to Mr. Rothschild the fundamental discovery that the appearance of power through the issuance of currency and loans could induce people to surrender their real wealth, their labor, and resources.
The appearance of power.
Yeah. He supposedly found he could issue more notes than he had backing for, using a stock of gold just as persuasion. This overconfidence could then be exploited. He'd make money scarce, tighten control, collect collateral, and repeat the cycle, even igniting wars to profit from the chaos and debt.
A cycle of engineered boom and bust.
Pretty much. The final key to economic control, the document states, relies on sufficient data and high-speed computing equipment to monitor economic oscillations, essentially treating the entire economy as a system of predictable, quantifiable waves.
High-speed computing.
Yeah,
Okay, here comes the tech angle again.
exactly. And here's where the explicit link to AI and autonomous systems becomes profoundly clear and highly relevant for 2025 and beyond. The document introduces the E model, which conceptualizes an entire national economy, including production, distribution, consumption, investment, labor, even human functions, as an electronic circuit. Its behavior, the manual states, can be predicted and manipulated with useful precision.
Society as a circuit board.
That's the analogy, yeah. To make this more concrete, economic components like capital, goods, and services are directly equated to electronic components like capacitors, resistors, and inductors. The truly unsettling idea here is that just as an engineer can predict and manipulate electricity in a circuit, Cooper claims this power structure believes they can predict and manipulate the very flow of a nation's economy and, by extension, its people. Economic inductance is particularly chilling. It's described as a phenomenon where the human population field collapses when economic value diminishes, implying that economic hardship is intentionally engineered. The document even mentions resorting to war to keep money flowing in controlled directions.
Engineered hardship and war, just to manage the circuit.
According to this document, yes. It also outlines economic shock testing, a method for controlled destabilization. This involves manipulating prices of staple commodities, think beef, coffee, gasoline, sugar, specifically to disrupt public budgets and buying habits.
It's like poking the system to see how it reacts.
Precisely. The goal is to observe the shock waves in advertising, prices, sales, providing data on human reaction. The ultimate objective, it states, is to set the public economy into a predictable state of motion or change, even a controlled self-destructive state of motion, explicitly to convince the public that only expert people should control the money system, ultimately leading to total enslavement, as the source puts it. Furthermore, economic amplifiers are described as strategies that not only deliver power gain to the manipulators, but cause changes in the economic circuitry, a process popularly called game theory.
But not academic game theory.
No, this is presented as a method for highly sophisticated, almost computational manipulation of societal behavior for total economic and social control.
That's a truly chilling vision of society reduced to a circuit, manipulable by experts. The level of proposed information gathering for control is equally staggering, isn't it? Reaching into every aspect of public and private life. What kind of data are we talking about here, and how is it supposedly used?
The National Input Information section lists an incredibly wide array of sources, from government channels, welfare records, IRS, census data, even surveillance of U.S. mail.
Mail surveillance.
That's what it claims. Business data, prices, sales, investments, banks and credit bureaus, detailed credit and payment info, and miscellaneous sources, public polls, surveys, private telephone records, even utility purchases. All of this data, the document states, feeds into habit patterns programming.
Habit patterns programming. Sounds like behavior analysis.
Exactly. It's used to categorize individuals by strengths and weaknesses. This includes specific activities, hobbies, crime records, drug sensitivities, reactions to pain, even psychiatric records detailing fears, angers, disgusts, adaptability, suggestibility, love, and sex.
Everything.
Pretty precisely. And what's truly striking for 2025 and beyond with regards to AI and autonomous systems is the short list of outputs outlined in the document. This describes how all this meticulously collected data is explicitly used to create controlled situations and manipulate the economy, hence society.
Okay, how? What are the outputs?
It details granular control by managing compensation and income, including allocating or even destroying opportunities, controlling raw materials, capital, bank rates, currency inflation, property, industrial capacity, manufacturing, availability, and prices of goods, services, labor. It's exhaustive.
Destroying opportunities.
Yes. It also includes controlling payments to government officials, legal functions, personal data files, uncorrectable by the party slandered.
Uncorrectable. So digital character assassination.
That's the implication. Plus, controlling advertising, media contact, and even disengaging attention from real issues. This clearly describes a comprehensive, automated system designed for granular societal control, where massive data collection directly enables manipulative outputs. It suggests a highly sophisticated, potentially AI-driven framework for future governance.
A system where everything is potentially curated and controlled.
The implication is a system where every aspect of your life, from your job to your finances to even what you focus your attention on, is potentially managed.
So, if they have this level of data and the ability to manipulate the system, how does this asserted system maintain control without overt conflict or widespread public resistance? The primary strategy, according to the source, is diversion. It seems like keeping the public uninformed and distracted is absolutely key.
Absolutely, it's laid out as the central pillar. Diversion, the primary strategy, aims to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic systems principles on the one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand.
Keep them ignorant and distracted. How?
Through several channels. The media is explicitly described as a tool to divert adult public attention from real social issues to matters of no real importance. Schools are allegedly designed to keep the young ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and real history, effectively preventing them from understanding the mechanisms of control.
So, dumbing down education.
That's the claim. And entertainment is purposefully kept below a sixth grade level, ensuring a low intellectual bar for public consumption. The general rule, it states, is bluntly profit in confusion, the more profit. This isn't accidental, but a deliberate, systematic strategy.
Profit and confusion. Okay.
The plan also calls for something quite disturbing: the disintegration of the family unit. This is supposedly achieved with state controlled public education and state operated childcare centers, becoming more common and legally enforced.
Why disintegrate the family?
The stated goal is the early detachment of children from their parents, ostensibly to undermine traditional values and create a more malleable populace. And here's another significant link to AI and autonomous systems, or at least automated societal management: how the physical body can be integrated.
Okay.
The source claims inoculation of behavioral drugs, Ritalin, can speed the transition for the child, mandatory.
Mandatory behavioral drugs for children.
That's the assertion. The text also highlights how patriotism and nationalism are explicitly considered mental illness within this framework, implying that any form of strong, independent national identity is to be suppressed,
Patriotism as mental illness.
which in turn leads to mind control on a grand scale through biomedical and behavioral research. This explicitly connects to the psychopolitics methods attributed to the Soviet secret police, aiming to control thoughts and loyalties and eradicate the individual's concept of right and wrong.
Psychopolitics.
Mm.
Like brainwashing on a mass scale.
It suggests a highly integrated, medically and psychologically targeted system for social automation, impacting individuals from childhood onwards, designed for comprehensive future control of both mind and body.
That's a truly unsettling picture. A society where not only your actions, but your very thoughts and loyalties are subject to manipulation and even medical intervention. Moving from these theoretical blueprints to practical implementation, the source claims a shadow government operates outside public view, systematically undermining foundational principles. How does it allege this erosion of constitutional freedoms is achieved, laying the groundwork for a future authoritarian state?
The document alleges that presidential executive orders, National Security Council (NSC) memos, and National Security Decision Directives (NSDs) are used to skirt the balance of power and write law without anyone's knowledge.
Secret laws, essentially.
That's the idea. Cooper asserts that the United States has effectively been under martial law ever since Lincoln's administration, implying these directives function as hidden laws that bypass public scrutiny and congressional oversight, establishing a parallel legal framework that supersedes the Constitution,
A parallel government operating in secret.
creating a deeply opaque system of governance, setting a dangerous precedent for future autocratic control, according to this view. Looking ahead to 2025 and beyond, the source points to a specific piece of legislation as fundamentally altering the constitutional system. This is the Senate Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 1991, SB 2834.
Okay, what about this act?
It claims it was passed at 3:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning, August 4th, 1990, by a minority of senators, a deeply suspicious detail in Cooper's narrative, suggesting a deliberate attempt to avoid public attention.
Passed in the dead of night.
Right. This bill allegedly gave the President George Bush Sr., at the time, unprecedented power to initiate covert actions without congressional approval, use any federal agency or private contractor, and secretly interfere in foreign affairs. The source snarkily concludes that this effectively made him the first American king,
The first American king. Strong words again.
fundamentally shifting the balance of power and laying groundwork for a more autocratic future where the executive branch operates with virtually unchecked authority, a key step towards the New World Order in this narrative.
And at the heart of this asserted shadow, government's domestic control apparatus are two very specific entities: FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and a mysterious underground complex known as Mount Weather. What are these facilities and their asserted roles in this plan for future control?
Mount Weather, located near Bluemont, Virginia, is described as the operational center, the hub for over 96 other underground federal relocation centers scattered across the United States.
96 underground centers.
That's the claim. These are not merely standby facilities, but are presented as an actual government in waiting, housing a president and all cabinet members actually in residence who are addressed by their titles. It implies a fully functional parallel government ready to take over.
An actual government in waiting.
Wow. These facilities, Cooper claims, allegedly contain computer data banks on American citizens, patriots, operating with few, if any, safeguards, implying a massive unchecked surveillance apparatus already in place, capable of tracking and identifying dissenters.
Computer banks on citizens.
Yeah.
Patriots specifically.
Yes. For 2025 and beyond, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, is framed as the key tool to take over local, state, and federal government during a national emergency, effectively suspending the Constitution.
FEMA as the takeover mechanism.
The source links FEMA's creation to a memorandum by Harvard professor Samuel P. Huntington, who also famously wrote the seminal piece for the Trilateral Commission, recommending discarding democracy as an outdated idea.
So linking FEMA's origin to anti-democratic ideas.
Painting FEMA as part of a larger plan to dismantle democratic structures, yes. The document cites Executive Order 114090, signed by President Carter in 1979, as law detailing departmental responsibilities under such an emergency. This outlines a future scenario where a pre-existing infrastructure enabled by executive orders and potentially highly automated systems triggers the suspension of rights and normal governance.
Ushering in a totalitarian state under the guise of emergency.
That's the picture. The specifics under Executive Order 114090, as detailed by Cooper, are truly chilling in their implications for a fully automated, controlled future by 2025.
Okay, break those down for us.
The Post Office Department would be responsible for a national registration of citizens' comprehensive population tracking. The State Department would handle UN personnel protection and prevent escape from the U.S., indicating international authority and movement control.
Preventing escape.
The Department of Defense would expropriate industry, direct services, national production, and control censorship, a total takeover of economy and information. The Commerce Department would manage expropriation, selection, and international distribution of commodities, which the source explicitly calls the looting of the United States, plus census info and human resources.
Human resources meaning people.
Yes. Further, the Federal Reserve Bank, which the source explicitly states is not a federal bank, emphasizing its private nature, would regulate currency withdrawal, paving the way for a cashless society.
Cashless society. That's a common theme.
The GSA, General Services Administration, would confiscate private property. HUW, Health, Education, and Welfare, would nationalize education, health services, hospitals, mental institutions, complete state control over personal well-being.
Nationalized everything.
The Labor Department would handle manpower recruitment and allocation, meaning each registered person told where to work. Economic slavery, basically. And HUD, Housing and Urban Development, would transfer persons to temporary or permanent housing.
Relocating people at will.
This comprehensive breakdown paints a picture of a future where all aspects of life are centrally controlled and allocated. It hints at a highly automated, systematic approach to human resource management and societal control under the guise of an emergency, where AI could play a critical role in data processing, resource allocation, and even behavioral management.
That's an astonishing level of systemic control, painting a truly grim picture of a planned police state with chilling implications for citizen rights and freedom. How is this national police force to be established, and what kind of control mechanisms are detailed to enforce this new order?
The LEAA, the Law Enforcement Assistance Administration, and the Police Foundation are described as prime movers towards implementing a national police force under programs like Operation Cable Splicer and Operation Garden Plot, which is specifically identified as the Martial Law Program.
Garden Plot, the Martial Law Program.
These involve military units taking over local and state governments, controlling crowds, prosecuting dissenters, fundamentally altering the citizen-authority relationship, replacing local police with a unified, militarized force.
And the AI link here, is it just surveillance?
It goes beyond that, disturbingly. The LEA's support for psychosurgery and drug research is highlighted with the stated aim to neutralize neurological sources of violence or to make individuals as cooperative as an adding machine.
Cooperative as an adding machine. Gets chilling.
Yeah.
Like biological robots.
It's presented as altering the very biological and neurological makeup of individuals for compliance. The use of anectine, a cure derivative, and electroconvulsive shock on prisoners is detailed, supposedly enabling increased voltage without breaking bones while leaving consciousness and pain intact.
That's horrific.
It's a direct assertion of an attempt to mechanically or chemically control human behavior and thought. And remember, the source controversially claims that patriotism and nationalism are considered mental illness by this power structure, implying dissent itself is pathologized and subject to such interventions.
So dissent becomes a medical problem to be cured.
Looking ahead to 2025 and beyond, the text warns of U.S. Army Reserve's military police POW commands, like one cited in Livonia, Michigan. These commands are stated to have camps for foreign prisoners of war and for enemies of the United States, explicitly stating these enemies include U.S. citizens,
U.S. citizens as enemies of the state.
referred to as inventory and internees,
Right.
stripping them of humanity and rights. Specific locations like Maxwell Air Force Base, Tucson, Avon Park, Florida are named as such facilities. The source controversially interprets Article 3 of the Geneva Convention to apply to armed conflict, not of an international character,
Nanning.
meaning it could allow imprisonment and even the death penalty for citizens exercising free speech in domestic conflict scenarios, essentially criminalizing dissent during internal unrest. Furthermore, Field Manual FM 4110 on civil affairs operation is cited as explicitly permitting assumption of full or partial executive, legislative, and judicial authority over a country or area, including U.S. territories. This manual, according to the source, details programs for concentration camps and labor camps, located together for obvious reasons, and a psychological operations organization, indicating systematic psychological warfare.
Concentration camps in a U.S. Army field manual.
That's the claim. Perhaps most alarmingly for future implications, the existence of a security index and master search warrant and a master arrest warrant, allegedly fed into computers, printing names and addresses for arrests and confiscations since 1946, is also discussed.
A computerized list for arrests since 1946.
This depicts a comprehensive, technologically enabled police state apparatus already in motion, with future capabilities for automated identification and apprehension of perceived enemies. It hints at AI-driven surveillance.
What kinds of scenarios are presented as potential controlled events for 2025 and beyond?
It presents a series of truly chilling scenarios, not as random occurrences, but as potential manipulated events, tools to usher in the New World Order.
Like what?
Assertions of a sudden ice age on its way, Los Angeles being hit by a 9.0 earthquake, New York City destroyed by a terrorist-planted atomic bomb.
Engineered catastrophes.
That's the implication. Also listed, World War III breaking out in the Middle East, collapse of banks and stock markets, food disappearing from markets, some people mysteriously disappearing, and even the Messiah presenting himself to the world. All presented as possible events manipulated by the world power structure to create chaos. Framed against avoiding large-scale nuclear exchange by promoting a better red than dead mentality, ultimately resulting in a totalitarian socialist state. The idea is that these cataclysms are tools in a long-term strategy for global control, making populations desperate enough to accept a new order.
Desperate times, desperate measures, engineered by them.
That's the assertion. And one of the most disturbing claims is a deliberate, systematic approach to population reduction, including the asserted use of biological agents. This takes population control to an entirely different level.
Biological agents, how?
It details a horrifying plan from the Club of Rome and a document called Global 2000 to introduce a plague specifically attacking the autoimmune system, rendering the development of a vaccine impossible.
An incurable plague.
And then it makes a truly controversial and deeply disturbing claim that this microbe was introduced via vaccine, specifically alleging the hepatitis B vaccine trials in 1978-81, targeting promiscuous homosexual male volunteers, loose the plague of AIDS upon the American people.
Okay, that's an incredibly inflammatory claim about AIDS.
Highly inflammatory, yes. The source further claims a suppressed prophylactic exists for the ruling elite, and a cure will be administered to the survivors when it is decided that enough people have died, announced as newly developed but having existed all along.
A controlled plague with a hidden cure.
It paints a picture of controlled disease managed for specific demographic outcomes. War is also discussed as a primary population control method, with cold, calculated critiques. For instance, the source asserts conflicts like El Salvador are insufficient for quick reduction because not enough fertile females are killed.
That's horrifically callous logic.
Revealing a truly horrific logic, yes. Even the Vietnam War is recontextualized not as a conflict to be won, but as an attempt to lower population, which we were not allowed to win because, according to Cooper, population actually increased. There are also claims of purposeful radioactive leaks to increase cancer rates in certain areas,
Engineered cancer clusters.
implying a hidden, pervasive campaign of environmental and biological warfare for demographic control. This all ties into a projected future where the number of humans is actively managed and reduced through engineered diseases, conflicts, and environmental manipulation.
This is truly entering a realm of the extraordinary, almost fantastical. Perhaps the most out there aspect of Cooper's claims revolves around an alien presence and its integration into this asserted control structure. This is where the narrative really steps into, well, science fiction territory.
Indeed, it reaches far beyond Earth. The existence of a secret group, Majesty 12 or Majority 12, supposedly commissioned by Eisenhower, is claimed to control all extraterrestrial information.
MJ12, right? A classic conspiracy element.
And here's a significant AI autonomous systems link for 2025 and beyond. A former Navy radioman, Randall Terpstra, is cited corroborating encounters during the Apollo-Soyuz mission with an unknown location identified as majority control and message traffic referring to IAC's identified alien craft,
The majority control, IACs, implying managed contact.
implying advanced communications and control systems managing contact with extraterrestrials, suggesting a complex, possibly automated network for interspecies interaction and information management. The source further alleges an exchange of technology with these aliens,
Technology exchange, leading to what?
leading to atomic powered anti gravity type craft currently flown by human pilots in Nevada at Area 51, codenamed Dreamland for above ground alien activity, and the dark side of the moon for the underground portion.
Dreamland, dark side of the moon, Area 51.
It makes the startling claim that at least 600 alien beings actually resided full time at this site, along with human scientists and CIA personnel, and that human pilots have made interplanetary voyages to the moon, Mars, and other planets in these craft,
Human pilots on interplanetary voyages in alien tech.
implying a truly advanced hidden space program, yes. The narrative even contradicts official accounts of the moon, painting a very different picture. It claims the moon has plant life that changes color with seasons, man made lakes and ponds, and clouds in its atmosphere,
Plant life and lakes on the moon.
and asserts it has a gravitational field allowing humans to walk upon its surface without a spacesuit, breathing from an oxygen bottle after undergoing decompression, like a deep sea diver, implying a habitable lunar environment and an elaborate cover up. Cooper claims to have official NASA photos to back this up.
Official NASA photos of plants on the moon. That's hard to believe.
It is. For 2025 and beyond, a major plan is asserted to prepare the public for eventual confrontation with an alien race through constant media bombardment movies, TV, advertising.
The alien invasion narrative.
However, the source of this could also be a sophisticated tactic to make you believe in an alien race that may not exist as a justification for the New World Order, using the terrifying narrative. The aliens are eating us.
So a real threat or a manufactured one.
Exactly. The source even claims the aliens themselves stated that they had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion, implying a cosmic origin for Earth's conspiracies.
Aliens manipulating through the occult.
The fundamental question becomes, if humanity is not mature enough to interact with an alien race, is a joint human alien power structure forming a one world government the only solution? This weaves the alien narrative directly into the larger plan for global control.
Making the New World Order seem like the only way to handle an alien situation, real or fake.
Right. The source also strongly attacks UFO debunkers, naming individuals like Phil Klass, William Moore, Hamish Shandera, Stanton Friedman, John Lear, Bo Gritz, labeling them government agents engaged in disinformation.
Calling out specific debunkers.
It highlights instances where William Moore allegedly admitted releasing disinformation and spying on researchers, and how Paul Benovich, another researcher, was committed to a mental institution due to alleged government pressure. It claims major UFO research organizations like MUFON are infiltrated and controlled, with physical evidence vanishing,
Evidence disappearing. MUFON infiltrated.
demonstrating how information is supposedly tightly controlled. Money, it says, is the basic method of control. Even suggesting personal connections of Cooper's family members are examples of how the secret government controls individuals and information channels like UFO Magazine. This underscores the asserted extreme level of control over the public narrative, even regarding UFOs.
Reinforcing the idea that no information can be trusted.
Pretty much.
As you heard, these claims are profoundly unsettling and, for many, seemingly implausible, almost beyond belief. But how does the source material itself address this skepticism? Does Cooper acknowledge how unbelievable some of this sounds, or does he have a different take?
Oh, he absolutely anticipates this disbelief. Yeah. And his book actually frames it as part of the conspiracy itself. Cooper states quite directly, your preconceived ideas had to be shattered in order for you to understand the rest of this book.
So disbelief is expected, even necessary.
Necessary to overcome, yes.
Yeah.
The very act of finding these ideas implausible, according to the source, is part of that diversion strategy we talked about, a deliberate tactic designed to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant.
So my skepticism means the plan is working on me.
That's the argument he makes, yes. He argues that the self-evident truths contained within the document, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, are ignored precisely because they are an indictment of their own ignorance, which they cannot face. In his view, your skepticism isn't rational thought, but a symptom of having been successfully manipulated.
Okay, so he's convinced these aren't just theories.
He firmly believes these are active plans already in motion, and he presses this point aggressively. He states, with absolute conviction, I can assure you beyond any shadow of a doubt that even if aliens are not real, the technology is real. Anti-gravity craft exist and human pilots fly them. I and millions of others have seen them. They are metal, they are machines.
He claims millions have seen these craft.
Yes, he insists that the New World Order is just on the horizon and that time is running short. The constant refrain throughout the source material is that the existence of these elaborate, detailed plans, no matter how implausible they might sound to the uninitiated, makes their realization not just highly likely, but argues they are already in motion.
So, from his perspective, it's practically inevitable.
This framing within the source suggests that disbelief is a luxury the public cannot afford, and that the sheer scope and planning described make the future he predicts almost inevitable from his perspective, unless action is taken immediately. He wants you to believe it's not a possibility, but a certainty unfolding around us.
What an intense deep dive into the extraordinary claims of William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse. We've explored a world of asserted hidden power, from ancient secret societies manipulating global events to that chilling blueprint for societal control laid out in the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document. The asserted future, shaped by economic engineering, population control, and even a deeply integrated alien agenda, paints an incredibly stark and unsettling picture of what, according to this source, lies ahead for us by 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, and the source urges you not to dismiss these claims as mere conspiracy theories, arguing instead that public ignorance and skepticism are actually part of the system's design. It describes a future where, by 2025 and beyond, advanced computing and social automation could lead to a cashless, totalitarian socialist system, with nations relinquishing sovereignty to that world peace solution computer for automated governance. The warning from the source is clear and uncompromising. When your family is split up and spread across the United States to do slave labor and you never see your loved ones again, it will be your fault because you did nothing to prevent it.
Wow. Direct blame on the reader.
And it finishes, and once we lose our freedom, we are never going to regain it. It's presented as a desperate call to action born from a deep sense of impending doom.
Given the source's relentless insistence that these events are not just possible but planned and probable, what does it truly mean for you to be well informed in such a world? And what steps, if any, could you take to change a future that is, according to this perspective, already being written?
All right, that's it. Some heavy stuff, right? I was hoping there'd be a little more detail, but it is an old document, so. All right, that's it. It's Military Dust Museum, and that's that.